I volunteer at the museum. I have done since August 2013, which I love doing. And I am a young mum of a young child, which at times it is quite difficult, but it's really nice. It's very rewarding, and it's rewarding coming to the museum. I've been bringing her to the museum as well since, and I'm a teaching assistant, which I've become through being at the museum as well.
I see. So what initially brought you to volunteering? what was your background for that?
That's really funny. So I had a baking, I was a baker at that point from home, had a business then, and I was coming to the museum to sell my things at your fairs here, and I was chatting to people all the time because I'm very, very chatty, and one day I saw one of the managers lugging around sand in the street when I was putting my wares back in the car, and I said, "Would you like some help?" And he said, "Go and fill in a form on the front desk and then you can start helping." So that's what I did.
So you almost came to volunteering by accident.
Yeah.
Which is really good. I know that you briefly touched upon some of the things that you did at the museum inspired you to go on and get a teaching qualification. Would you like to enlarge upon that a little?
I was put into a team to start developing the learning side of the museum and doing the outreach boxes and going into schools to teach. At that time they weren't having schools come into the museum because they didn't have the space. So I was doing a lot of research for the handling boxes, and I was also going out to schools and developing that, and I helped with the paperwork for that. And I can remember it was like 2 days before New Year's Eve, we had to get the paperwork all sorted out, and I was here until 10 o'clock at night with one other volunteer and everything. It was, it was that kind of camaraderie that made you want to stay here and do that. And put the hours in. It's the close-knit community and the friendships that you make here. And now, since I've had my child, she's been more my life, and now I've got my teaching assistant qualification. I just do the museum on an ad hoc basis and do whatever I possibly can to help the museum.
So do you find that volunteering at the museum in particular lends itself to being a young mum with a young child, and the flexibility that involves? Do you find that useful for yourself?
Definitely, yeah. Everybody's so warm and welcoming. Straight after I had Annie, I was able to come in with her, with the buggy, come to meetings, not do very much else, or I was pushing the buggy around, giving leaflets into shops and things like that. You don't have to do very much if you don't have very much time, or you don't have very much energy and things. It's very, very flexible. I'd say it's very good. Yeah,
which is nice, because that brings me then on to the actual interaction with other volunteers and almost the social side of volunteering. How do you find that across all of the age ranges?
I think that everybody that I've come across who has volunteered or worked at the museum, either in the past or present, has been lovely. I've always been able to chat to everybody, and they've always been smiley, very rarely grumpy. And if they're grumpy, then it's for a particular reason, and you can generally just chat about it with people anyway. And it's really nice.
I know that some of our other volunteers they've they face various life challenges, but do you find that on the whole there is good support from the actual staff network here at the museum?
Yeah. For instance, I've got epilepsy. So sometimes I've had to be taken away from things because of health and safety reasons, which is fair enough. Nobody wants me having a fit whilst I'm pouring a cup of coffee for them. But there are lots of other things that I can do within the museum at the same time, which is why I mainly concentrate on the learning side, but I have done things on the admin side and just customer facing sides, chatting to the customers and things. I love chatting to the customers, so I'm very good at chatting.
That's never a bad thing, particularly in our context. Is there anything outside of what we've already discussed that you would actually like to say to a potential volunteer?
I'd say volunteering really, really helps. It helps the community, but it also helps yourself. I feel brilliant. Every time I come out of here, I am buzzing. It makes me feel so good about myself, just for the fact that I've come in and talked to other people. And just because you're not getting paid for something doesn't mean to say that you don't have to feel that it's not a worthwhile place to be. You're helping yourself, you're helping other people, you're helping your community, and therefore you're helping everybody around you gel together.
So another thing with volunteering, especially at a place like the museum, which is quite respectable, something like that would always look good on a CV. Do you agree? Have you got thoughts on that?
I definitely think it looks good on a CV. That was another reason why I got my job as a TA in the end. I initially came as a volunteer as an accident, but it was also to be able to fill in any gaps on my CV, because I was 3 months pregnant at the time and I just wanted to have a continuity. Because I was a volunteer, I was coming in all the time just to talk to people, because that's allowed. So, it's quite nice really to have that to go to if you're feeling a bit lonely as a new mum and your other half's out to work and you're kind of like, I don't know what to do. Oh, let's go to the museum for a bit.
So the camaraderie speaks for itself, really.
It does. Yeah, it really helps.
Very supportive with general life. It's not just about what you do within these four walls.
No, definitely not. No. It's really worth its weight in gold. So go and do a bit of volunteering because it really helps you, and it might end up with a job at the end of it like it did with me.